Today, this is my goal. I want us to attempt to get to a place where we can kind of erase in our minds a spiritual moment, a spiritual gathering, a spiritual building, a spiritual congregation. I want us to erase what we believe and have always thought and categorized worship as, and begin to break through this barrier to where we understand that it really encompasses everything in our lives. It is a life of worship. I'm going to give you two phrases, two definitions and two phrases that come from Romans 12. These two phrases alone have, for me, have been the two things that have anchored the new reframing of worship, at least as I've been working through this for the past 20 plus years, and just working through what does worship really look like? What does it mean? What is it specifically? And so here's two phrases. One is a way to just better understand it. It's a definition that I've used a long time. It's a better way to understand it. The second is how it looks, how it plays itself out. Here's the first one. Let's just read all this. Let's read it together. Let's be a little more interactive today. Let's read this whole thing together. Ready? Worship is a living response to God for who He is and what He's done, is doing, and will do. Right? Worship is, right, a living response. It's a response to God, but I like living response because it takes back that Romans 12, like that everyday, ordinary life, that living response to God for who He is, for what He's done, what He's doing, and what He will do, what He promises to do. And that's part of why we even grow in our faith, right? Why do we study and learn more about God? We study and learn more about God because we want to know better who He is. We want to better understand who He is. Why is it so important as a church, whether it's in conversations with life groups or discipleship conversations, mentor conversations? Why is it important that you grow in your relationship with Jesus through the Spirit in you? It's so that you can better see and recognize what He has done in your life, what He is doing in your life, what He will and promises He will do in your life. But it's not just a moment. It's not just a gathering. It's not a congregation. It's not a song, okay? Those are all parts of, really, I would even say a result of worship, more than it is actually worship. And so for us, that just helps kind of tell me a little bit more, reframing what it is. It's a living response to who He is, what He's done, and what He's going to do. And so the second one is my favorite quote, and it's from a guy named A.W. Tozer. And this one just talks about how it works. A.W. Tozer said this: we are called, he's talking to believers, we are called to an everlasting preoccupation with God. Preoccupation. Have you ever talked to somebody who's preoccupied with something, right? If you're in my house, this is what it looks like right now. It's my children staring at a device and asking me a question, but they don't bother to actually look at me or engage in me, and I have no idea they're talking to me. Does that make sense? Because something's so important on the device, they can't possibly raise their gaze or, stop it for a minute. They're preoccupied. And we all get that. I mean, we all have the negative side of that preoccupation. And the reality is, if you're in my house, you just want to pick something up and throw it at them. That's what I want to do, right? But that's a negative side of preoccupation. I don't want us to think through that because you can have a negative turn in terms of being preoccupied and not being present. What I believe A.W. Tozer is tapping into is to the beautiful complexity of how we were created. The fact that you and I were created to be in more than one moment at a time. That's how we were created. We are complex in how God created us. And let me tell you how this works out in a positive way. A preoccupation can be something like this. If you're an older adult here, you've had these experiences. I've seen my parents and my in-laws have this where kids grow up. They go off to college and they some have families and some. But there's times and moments, whether it's the holidays or just even a special night, where all the family kind of comes back together and has a meal or has a time together. And as parents and as people that are engaged in that, there's a time for you that, quite frankly, you're in the moment, you're enjoying the moment, but quite frankly, you're also somewhere else. You're also in that place in terms of this preoccupation of being thankful. You're thankful, you're joyous, you're thanking God for this beautiful, how your kids have turned out, what's going on. That's the complexity. Does that make sense? Of you can be in more than one place at a time. Take, for instance, if you're having a conversation with a friend. You're having a conversation with a friend, maybe they're going through a hardship, maybe they're struggling. And you're able to listen to them and give them your heart and give them your attention. But at the same time, this preoccupation with God allows you to be able to listen to what the Holy Spirit might be saying to you, to help you discern what it is that they're saying, to help you understand a way in which you can encourage them and speak life into their heart and souls. That's part of that preoccupation. You can also have it where it's just an open door. It's the fact that your mind is open to God nudging you while you're maybe doing menial tasks, and maybe it's grocery shopping. And I've met some of you at Target. Like some of you guys grocery shop like it's a safari hunt. I mean, I know it's high intensity, it's engaging, but maybe it's a menial task or another menial task you have, but it's just being open. It's that your mind is open to what God may want to do, maybe prompting you to nudge you to think about a person, to pray for a person, to send them an encouraging text. And that's just an aspect of understanding what does that mean, this preoccupation with God. It means that we are able to be fully present and yet fully preoccupied with our eyes fixed on Christ. That's just the way he made us.